Hey, folks. Welcome. Good to see you all. All right. So, glad to be back here with everyone. And thanks for joining us. I know it's a holiday weekend, um, and it's still good to be together today. I'm really excited to check in with folks, one-on-one, perhaps a little bit today, and say hi if anybody's up for it. See what folks are up to, see how work's going, see what kind of issues are happening in your world. Um, Also, just trying to plan for the future, what kind of content we have coming up and how we want to format it and stuff like that. So I want to see if I can get some feedback from folks. I'm actually traveling today, at impromptu. Carl, I would have tried to. Oh, Carl, did Carl jump in already? Yeah, he just jumped in. Carl, I would have tried to come visit you already, but having a very busy weekend, and I am here in Los Angeles again. So maybe we'll get to hang out. And they also realized that I believe L Day, is L Day a Los Angeles area guy as well? Carl, you look tired, bud. Say hi. Let's get you unmuted. Where are you at? Unmute yourself. Do. Ask to unmute. Oh, I think he's having an issue. All right, I wanted to check in. I actually feel like I haven't really checked in with Bill Magnussen much at all, and I see he's here today as well. That was worth saying hi. Bill, do you mind unmute yourself? You want to check in for a sec?
Well, nice of you to say hello. Um,
Yeah.
I'm a very unusual RPT because I have almost no practice. I sold my business. I used to tune 5 pianos a day and drive all over the place in my 30s. But in '96, I sold my practice to a local tech and embarked on another career from which I'm now um, decreasing and winding down. But I've always kept my hand in piano service, and I just love it. Wish I could do more of it, but I don't advertise, don't have a website, don't network. And so I have just a handful of paying clients and take care of my own piano and that of a couple of relatives. But yes, the last 2 days I actually worked on two pianos. One of my regular clients and a new customer who called me off the PTG website, which happens once or twice a year. And, and these were both small grands, about 5'2". And I've got to tell you all that my tuning in the last few years has completely changed and improved as a result of two things. Number one, 4.5 years ago, I bought myself a new Schimmel 6-foot grand. I'm not much of a player, but working on it has such a strong, clear tone, unlike most pianos we get to work on out in the field. You can hear so much more and so much better. It completely changed my tuning just as a result of working on that piano. And then several months ago, I invested in Rick Baldison's DVDs on Octave Tests. I haven't yet studied his latest one on temperament, but the DVDs on Octave Tests and isolating the partials and explaining why this test is better than that test completely revolutionized my understanding of tests and tuning and so forth.
Yeah.
And that has totally changed, again, what I do and how I set things. And so, I got to use this improved knowledge, the last couple of days twice. And, the tuning I did yesterday, it was a new customer. The center of the piano was 10 cents sharp. The treble was flat. And I think I may have convinced them to service it 3 times a year for the first time in their whole 20 years ownership of the piano. And I worked so hard on that tuning, and I think I really nailed it. And I hope when the guy came home who plays, he played it and said, wow, I've never had it like this before. Hope so. Anyway, it's fun. It's a lot of work. It was a lot of work, but I was so proud of that tuning when I finished. And I hope
Awesome.
it was the best they ever had.
Awesome. I like that attitude. Yeah, I feel like the way I always thought about it, I tend to put more time and effort into pianos than I think I should, put it that way. I'd vacillate. Should I perfect this just a little bit more? And there is always that voice of someone in the past, I must have heard at least once or twice. It doesn't matter. Like they don't know the difference or something, right? Like
Yeah, but
depending on the
you
particular
will
client.
know. You will
Yeah,
know. You have
right.
to live with yourself. And I'll also mention, Ethan, before I shut up, because I'm sure you have other things you want to do. When I was, I guess I'll say, in production, tuning 5 pianos a day, making a living at it, by necessity, my tunings were an hour more or less, plus driving. And now that I have the luxury of doing it for the beauty and the art of it and not for the money of it, I take 2 hours or maybe even more to tune my piano. And I do it once a month. It's not that far off.
Mhm.
But I have the luxury of being able to really do it right as opposed to having to knock it out. So anyway, that's what you get when you get old.
Nice. Oh, that's great. Yeah, I was just gonna follow that up, what I said earlier about, you know, saying they won't know the difference. I just at least pretend that there's because, of course, some people don't know. They maybe have never heard a piano well tuned,
That's
and
right.
that's why they don't know the difference. And then once
No.
they hear it, they might find out the difference, right? Oh, this guy's actually good. This piano sounds better than I thought it could. Or just there's also just kind of like a subtle subconscious thing where, because the ear, I studied neuroscience, like a lot of our perception is a subconscious level, and I'm almost positive, these things are registering in people's brain, whether or not they'll admit or being able to pull out the details and describe it to you what sounds different. I always just kind of act on the assumption that they will feel the difference, whether they
Well,
they really
and
know how to communicate that or not.
and a shout out to Carl. Carl, I really admire your attitudes towards, not just pricing, but your attitude towards you're here to make people feel good. It's a psychological thing. And so I'm working on this piano, and I told them that I would spend an extra hour besides the tuning on whatever I could find. And I'm sitting here, and it's a 20-year-old Yamaha, and I'm looking at the corroded Yamaha nameplate, and I said, Carl would agree with this. I'm going to polish that.
There you go.
And I had my brass polish with me. And so the last thing I did was I daubed it on and I made it all shiny. And I said, okay, this is a Carl thing, because they're gonna go, wow, this guy is different from anybody who's been in here the last 20 years. And if they have me back in February, it'll be because of that stupid shiny logo. That's why they will do it.
Well, I always say you got to sell the sizzle and the steak.
That's right. Well, I had a haberdasher once who said, it's the little things that matter to people. The big things they're paying for the big things, but they're expected to be there and they're supposed to be there. It's the little things you do that keep them coming back.
A
Well,
wow factor as
Yeah.
well.
And I like to I think when I tune a piano, I'm actually going to be followed the next day. Some other technician's going to just come and check up on it and see how it was. So that
I
keeps me on my.
actually did that once. There was a very well respected local technician who tuned a Steinway D, and I happened to be in there the next day, and I said, I'm going to check. And honestly, guys, it was okay, but I was not all that impressed with his temperament. I would never say that to him, and it doesn't diminish anything about him or what he does. But sometimes other people do check on it.
I think it's a good idea to tell him what you thought about his temperament because we never get feedback otherwise, right? And how he might never know if you didn't tell him.
Well,
Then there's
I
been
either
the
will
times
or I
where I
won't.
come up on a piano and I say, the last technician must have had no idea what they're doing. Then I try and tune it. I go, oh, I see. I see. This one's the hard one.
Well,
Oh, the break just sounds horrible. What were they thinking? I can't figure it out either.
For me, this is wonderful. Like the concerts are returning, and I've worked on a number of high-profile concerts this last week, and I have lots more coming up in the next couple of weeks. And you talk about, so I worked for this guy Ori Shahor, really wonderful pianist, 2 nights ago, and he was unhappy with the voicing. It was a Yamaha Artist Services piano. And he was unhappy with the voicing. I wasn't going to mess with the voicing on it. So Kevin Suzuki came out from Yamaha and did a little voicing on it. But then, of course, he checked my tuning. You think, and it was fine. The tuning was great. The concert was great. Everything was great. But you talk about someone checking your tuning, having someone like Kevin checking my tuning, I went, oh my God. So, but it all worked out for the best. So.
I have to say, of all of the high pressure things I've experienced in my life, there's something about sharing your piano tuning with another technician that feels like I'm in, I'm in the trenches, It's quite nerve-wracking. Yeah. Anyways, that's why we all appreciate David Anderson's like, I'm going to tune in front of everybody and we'll put it on recording, All right.
Well, listen,
man.
let me just share one
Go
other
for
thing,
it.
because I can do this among you guys. I had from the sublime to the ridiculous. I worked on a number of gorgeous $200,000 pianos for concerts this week. And then I worked on a Yamaha P22 at the Hollywood Bowl for Alanis Morissette. And they put it in the sun, in the bright sun for 6 hours. So I went out and in 2 days, I did 4 5-minute tunings where I cleaned up 5 unisons. Because what are you going to do? They take this piano. I said, let me tune it backstage, keep it backstage until it's time. And they said, no, it's got to be on stage. And they put this piano in the bright sun for 6 hours. So it was just an impossible tuning. And I just basically said, I cleaned up some unisons and said, close enough for rock and roll.
I tuned a piano in a greenhouse. And when I started tuning the piano, the sun was behind the trees. Halfway through the tuning, the sun came up and that greenhouse, the whole tuning went out. Oh my gosh, I had to tune it all over. And then I just decided, do I want to tune it for the sunny day or the cloudy day? Anyway.
Well, I got a rule of thumb on outdoor. I have a rule of thumb on outdoor concerts. Do as little as you can. If you can get there early in the morning before the sun comes up and do a real tuning, and then the whole rest of the day, don't do anything. You're just going to screw it up. Don't try and be a hero.
Right, because it's going to be changing as it moves, and the little things you do are just going to, amplify.
And then at 8 o'clock at night, when the sun is down and the humidity's returned, it's back where it was in the morning.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I was trying to see if Elde wanted to chat. I haven't really. Is he out here in Los Angeles area too? Am I right about that, Carl?
I think he is.
Cool. Yeah, maybe he and I can touch base next time I'm in town. I keep coming out here. I'm on sort of like unrelated business to piano stuff, so I don't
You
always
on
have
NFT?
time.
Are you looking at NFTs?
Oh man, you have no idea. This is not the avenue to chat about that topic per se, but yes, that's definitely part of it. Briefly, I went to like a Hollywood party last night, filled with like influencers and artists and things like that, and we did interviews and I talked to Warren Buffett's granddaughter last night actually. That was kind of fun. But yeah, that's kind of the crux of it. But it's fun. It's good stuff. And I like it out here. I like Los Angeles. I've always been drawn uh, back when I was in my late 20s and I had moved back home to the Chicago area. I was thinking, the next move, I'm going to either go to New York area or maybe I'll go to Los Angeles. I don't know. Maybe I had one or two more ideas. It was basically New York or Los Angeles or San Francisco, and you got to pick. So I went to New York area, but I like the energy out here in the LA region. All right, cool. So I wanted to maybe take a tiny bit of time to talk about the next steps for Piano Tech Radio Hour, Piano Technicians Master Classes. I mean, this whole thing, as whoever was here last week heard kind of the origin story and the process of all this, but I'm, as you may have noticed, I kind of sit at the edge of what's new, right? So we're having to kind of create things as they go. So it's always good to get feedback and check in and see what the next steps are. So maybe we can take a little bit of time to talk about what people appreciate, what topics of um, of learning are the most useful, what's not useful, what people appreciate, what they need, and ideas. Maybe people have interesting new ideas about what we can do. So yeah, I don't know. It just before I pick on anybody, does anybody have any thoughts about, let's say, topics, right? We talk about voicing. I was pretty I found it pretty useful that voicing became a major theme of what we've done, giving people access to information about voicing, which I think is great. And at the same time, it's almost like the more you learn about voicing, the more there is to learn. There's kind of nobody ever really feels 100% confident with it. Always a slightly still confused about how exactly to go about it. But I think we're getting better. We're getting better information. But are people still interested in like more content on voicing? Is there other topics that are kind of trending that we haven't covered, or individuals that we should get to teach classes? Any suggestions, recommendations, anything like that?
Well, Ethan, one of my big lessons and messages in piano service as it relates to voicing is if I were to teach a class, actually, I proposed this a number of years ago as a class for the convention. And the title was something like Voicing Before Even Touching the Hammer. And there are maybe 15 or 20 things that you can and should do before you even touch the hammer. And they actually accepted the class and said, okay, so you're going to teach it. And I'm going, well, no, I didn't know that was your expectation. I was just proposing an idea for someone to do. And they said, all right, forget it. We'll have someone else do something else. So, but I mean, all you guys know full well all the things that. Take the piano yesterday, the new one that I did, as part of my extra hour. First thing I did was tighten the lag bolts on the plate, which were so loose that I thought they were stripped. I kept turning them until they tightened up, and seated the strings on the bridges. That's like step 1 and 2 of voicing. And I have found that tightening those screws increases volume of the piano because there's a firmer reflection on the edge of the soundboard. And that's seating the strings on the bridges just completely changes, or can completely change, the sound of the piano, both the tone quality and the clarity and everything. And no one ever had done either of these things, right? So then you go through the whole regulation process. That is all voice. That is my message. And so if we're to talk about voicing, I would emphasize that as well as just the hammers. But the other thing I have learned on this Schimmel, and you know all this, but you know, I don't work on that many pianos and I'm still learning. The huge difference between how you treat a hard hammer and a soft hammer. Back when I was doing it full time, I had some Yamaha Grands I took care of, and those are hard hammers, of course. And I found that if you take out all the grooves, you get a really nice sound. But if you took out all the grooves on my Schimmel, which has very soft hammers, you kill it because it needs that packing in order to have a good attack. And it's taken 4.5 years of playing that piano for them to play in and pack in. So if we're talking about the hammer, one really useful dichotomy in the discussion is the hard versus the soft. Where do you file out the grooves and where do you keep the grooves in for strategic purposes? Just throwing that out there as the overall, because the whole point of what we do in piano service is to create a beautiful sound. That's voicing. But there's, 20 or 25 different components of that.
Right.
And if you stick needles in hammers that don't need needles stuck in them, you're doing the wrong thing. But there are 10 other things you could do that would improve it.
Yeah. Yeah. Another thing too is like, there's different levels of clients and their level of knowledge, but most people think of a piano tuning like a car tune-up.
Yeah.
You're just going to improve this thing, overall point by point inspection and check and improvement, tweaking, things like that, right? So these words tuning and voicing to us feel like different categories, maybe because we take on, tuning just feels like it's just turning the pins, and voicing feels like it's like doing other stuff. But in the end, I think it's just to remember that the client just wants it to sound better. And if it sounds better, they're going to say it was tuned, right? And it was tuned well. And so by doing these additional things beyond just turning the pins, right? Whether we call it voicing or not, they'll probably perceive it as tuning, and that you did a better tuning when you do the things that we call voicing too.
It was either David Anderson and or Carl who said something along the lines of, don't change the voicing on the piano, either just before a concert or without permission, without their knowing what's going on. And in relation to the piano I did yesterday, my plan for that is every time I'm there, if they let me come back, is as part of the extra hour, I'll give the hammers 2 swipes of the paddle on both sides. Just whoop, 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 whoop. Because that will change the sound, but not a tremendous amount. And I'm going to be tuning too. So they expect it to sound different when I'm done. But honestly, guys, when I played, and gals, when I played the piano, when I was done, the tuning was perfect. And I said, this thing sounds like shit. I really did, to myself, because, it hadn't had anything done in 20 years. And so by doing just a teeny bit of reshaping each time, over 2 or 3 years, I can do what I want to do and not freak them out. A little bit of strategy.
That's interesting. Yeah, I don't know that I've done that before, but yeah, to kind of, it's also like I've worked at the university setting a little bit, but that's also something interesting to keep in mind. If you're running around working on different pianos that you get to revisit often, and you want to achieve like a larger task, you could just do a little piece of it, here and there, over the course of a couple months,
Well, I actually mentioned that idea to the guy one of the guys who works at University of Colorado Boulder, and he said, I like I like the thinking. My problem is I don't have time to do that. But he thought the concept was a good concept.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
throwing it out there.
University techs don't have enough time to do any of what they got to do. Dean, where are you located?
I'm in the Seattle chapter. I'm the
Oh,
vice
okay. Oh, awesome. That's
tuning
really cool.
for 49 years now. So I like the little tips at the front of the journal. The shortcuts and jigs you can make and things like that. And every once in a while, once a year, we'll have some kind of a class of just little tips and tools and things like that at our chapter meeting. I'm in charge of ideas of what to do for each program for years. I've been the vice president for almost 5 years now.
You're a saint. Aha.
COVID,
I think you get to be canonized as a saint after being, on the leadership of your chapter for a certain number of years. They should add that to the what do you call it? You got RPT, and then above that you have sainthood once you've served a certain amount.
I've also been archiving a lot. Like I used to take videos with the old great big VHS camera of all our presentations. All those guys are dead now that did on those. And then I started audio taping them because that was easier than videotaping them. And then now what I do is I'm a fast typist. I just type what they say while they're talking. Wow. It doesn't have the video quality, but at least I have this archive of all these presentations we've done.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
And how long have you been engaging with us here at the Radio Hour and the master classes?
This is the first one.
Oh, are you serious? Okay. You've never been before, ever?
I just joined it. Yeah, look at this.
Oh, okay. Look at you. You're like right here in the forefront, speaking up. Love it. Appreciate it. Yeah. Well, you've missed a lot, Dean. You've missed a lot. We need to get you in the archives. Probably one of the biggest things that you missed is David Anderson, man. I mean, he was part of these radio hours for, a good year and a half or something. And bless his soul. But we've been having some fun here. There are some archives if you feel like you want to get into them and subscribe and see what was going on. There's also a few radio hours recorded as podcast episodes, and we have stuff on YouTube and Facebooks too. So, but very cool, very cool. So you know Steve Brady?
Oh yeah, I know him really well. I've known him for probably 40 years.
Cool.
I have 5 people who want to apprentice, but because of COVID, we have not met for 2 years. So I've been into different things. I gave them a link to yours, but cool. I have like hundreds of pianos at my place, and I was going to have each person have their own piano, and we're going to start at the beginning and go through the structure and then take it all apart, put it together, and then work our way in from, basic repairs to final tuning. But that hasn't happened because of COVID. So what I'm doing now is I'm getting calls from people who want to get rid of their pianos. And I started collecting them. And that's where I got all these pianos. Until I got like 300 pianos. That's too many. So
literally 300? Are you exaggerating?
Work. Every one of them needs work. And I thought, I just do not have time to do this. So I met a guy at Burning Man. He wanted 90 piano harps to make a big structure, which is cool. And so I tore apart 90 pianos down to the harps for him. And then I called him and said, when are you sending the semi truck up to haul it down to Nevada? And he says, oh, we can't afford the truck. So now I've got all these pianos there. So I've got to take those apart. So then I got an email from a guy in Peru. Say, hey,
I think I know this guy. Wait, is he Peruvian or is he from the States?
He's from the States, but he lives in Lima.
Oh,
and
okay.
He I found out that you give away free pianos, and I said, yeah. Well, how many do you want? I was joking. I said, how many do you want? And he said, all of them. And I said, you're kidding. Yeah, right. Turns out he started a store in Lima, Peru. and he got some Peruvian technicians who fix them up and tune them, and he's selling them for a low price because they don't have much money down there. And the only other option they have is brand new $1 million pianos, and they can't afford that. So he's really popular. He just advertises on the internet. So people call me, they want their piano hauled away. So I've got it worked out now. So his dad goes and picks him up in the Seattle area, and they ship, they can get in a 40-foot container, 25 uprights inside the container, and then they put plywood on top and put 25 more spinets on top. And they can ship 50 pianos in one container to Peru. So,
All right, we got to get this guy as a guest here on Radio Art. Can you arrange that?
I could.
All right.
So I just wrote a website. I'll tell you, I just put it up. It's not even done yet, but you guys are welcome to contribute to it. It's kind of like an open forum website. I want it to be. It's called pianorecycling.org. And I'm collecting pictures of things that people have done with pianos, that they was not worth fixing. So they wanted to tear it apart, but they didn't want to throw it out. So they turned it into a piece of art. So,
well, Dean, one of our local piano stores, last time I talked with the manager, he said that they give away pianos that they took in on trade and aren't worth, don't have enough profit in them to do anything with them. He said, show up with a pickup and we'll put it in the back.
What city?
Huh?
What city?
Denver. And so, I'd be interested to know whether it's possible to support this Peruvian cause from here as well. I mean, I could tell them about it if.
Well, how are you going to get pianos all the way from Denver to Seattle to put them on a ship?
Well,
That's
so
good.
that's how it works.
Seaport, which is
because you're on the coast. That's why. Okay, I understand.
Yeah, but they could make stops in probably San Francisco and Los Angeles and San Diego, and you at least got maybe some other coastal options.
You could mention to your guy that there are places in the middle of the continent that have pianos that they don't want, they're willing to give away. It's possible that something could be developed whereby piano stores or piano technicians plug into some kind of a system that sweeps through and picks them up. I'm just suggesting this.
Yeah, we'd need a big truck. South America is like the United States in the 50s, where everybody wants a piano, and they're all into
Really?
piano. United States is throw them out. We don't want it. We're going to get a keyboard.
Yeah, I lived in Peru for a year and a half actually,
Really?
and so I did a little bit of a study of the Peruvian piano industry. I really just informal. I just went around and I would tune pianos for free in exchange for the stories of meeting the people. And I put a little blog together and wrote about what happened. I called myself ambassador of pianos to Peru. And I actually ended up meeting the closest thing you would think to an ambassador of pianos. He was the cultural attaché with the Peruvian government. He had been all over the world, in various stations in Europe and the United States and various Latin American countries. And he was also a classically trained pianist. And wherever he was, he would give these piano concerts. So he and I became great friends. And I just happened to be introduced to him because in my broken Spanish, I told some guy that I was, the embajador de pianos, and he's like, and he gave me this guy's card, and I had no idea why, and I showed up at this guy's office, and then we were fast friends from that point forward. But yeah, I was all over Peru from Lima. I probably didn't meet the guy you're talking about, but I met, one of the major piano dealers in Peru, who does like new pianos. I also are in Lima. I meant to say Lima specifically. And then I found a guy that was like in a mission in Urubamba, and they had this ancient piano that he was rebuilding there that had some weird action Brown Action Mechanisms or something like that. That was, I think, the last name of the creator of the design. So yeah, I'm particularly interested in meeting this fellow that you're talking about.
Ethan, is there anything you haven't done?
No, nothing. Ask me anything. I've got an answer. There is not anything that I've done. Period. Oh man. Yeah, no, I actually used to be a woman. I'm kidding. Wouldn't that be great? Oh man. So anyways, yeah, that I appreciate that story and that input, Dean, and glad you're joining us this week. And I think one thing I'd love to get, we have been a little bit lax lately getting guests for this. We usually have a booked guest to talk about their expertise or have a conversation on Saturdays. So Dean, you can be our official guest for today because you're sort of new and interesting.
Well, a couple of names come to mind. I don't know if they've been guests, but
Yeah.
Don Menino and Kent Webb.
You know what? Yeah, both of those have not done anything with us yet. I don't think.
I think they both know a lot. I knew Kent back ages ago when he was at Baldwin. And I was very aggressive at calling him and saying, I found another of these things with Corfam on it, and it's 9.5 years old. Can we do a warranty repair? Yeah, okay, go ahead. So, I used to call him for Baldwin warranty. And Don, of course, is Don. And gosh, you could have them 3 or 4 times on different topics and learn a ton from each of them.
Yeah.
Seattle flew him over for an all-day seminar, and he just exuded information. We didn't want him to go, but
one thing that Don did, I noticed. I got a flyer a few years ago for a California regional convention, and he taught a class on stretch, octave stretch, and different amounts of stretch, and what that gets you. And that's an area of interest for me. And so I approached him and said, could you come to Denver and do that here? And he said, no, because it's a lot of work. Plus he was busy with other things. And think about it. I mean, you've got to find 3 pianos that are pretty much the same and then tune them all. And yeah, it is a lot of work. But that's an area of interest for me, is different stretches and what it gets you and why. And he can talk to that. I don't know whether he can demonstrate it, but he can certainly talk to that, among other things.
Yeah, it is useful. Anybody that put the time into like actually having a presentation on that, right? It's something you could talk about and philosophize about, but actually taking a look at that or a listen to that, it's not easy. So that content's pretty cool for sure. Those are great ideas. Jim Kelly sent me a direct message, and Donna, I've got a couple of your messages too. Thanks for participating via text. You're welcome to speak up too if you feel like chatting. But Jim Kelly said, was it Jonathan Cleghorn with the piano? He had a Chickering piano with the Brown Action in Peru, and yes, that was Jonathan Cleghorn. Now, Jim, do you know Jonathan personally, or did you just hear about what he was doing down there in Peru? I'm curious. But yeah, I met him and.
Hold on, am I on? Hello.
We can hear you. Hey, what's up, Jim?
Okay. Yeah, actually, I don't know him personally. I know him through the internet, but he had done a project down there. He was trying to figure out what he needed to take to go to Peru when he started that project. And he was getting discouraging feedback from people. And I sort of encouraged him. It's a little different type of piano, but it would probably be rewarding to do it, but you're going to need to get caught up to speed on the Brown Action. And it was hard finding information out about that, except there's a little guidebook called The Tuner's Companion, which I got, and it had diagrams and it had a lot of information on how the Brown Action worked. So that helped him. I think he did a second trip back there and restrung the piano. He got all new bass strings on it. Um, he's done some video and things. It's an interesting journey that he made, and it was somewhat related to somebody in his family who was a missionary there. Something was a
Yeah.
boys' school, and the piano was in sad shape. Obviously, nobody working on it. But when he left there, it was a playable instrument, and it was a journey. So he was in, I think he was in West Virginia at the time when he made the
Hmm.
trip, but he's since relocated and kind of
Yeah,
lost.
I actually helped him install a couple of those bass strings. And
Oh, you were there when? Okay.
yeah, yeah. So I forget if he reached out to me. I think he found my blog maybe, and he reached out to me. He said, "Hey, I'm in Peru too. Like, do you want to check things out?" I actually remember at the time, uh, it was I think it was like around Valentine's Day, and I remember it specifically because I have trouble with my relationship at the moment. I was like, okay, I guess I'll go down there. I'm not gonna have a very exciting Valentine's Day, so I basically went and I think we actually ended up reconnecting on Valentine's Day, but it was a couple days before Valentine's Day, and I went on this trip and uh, and helped him with that piano. And actually, let me see here. I'm pulling up this blog. I feel like I may be able to find the post where I was helping him, and I could show you guys. I think I probably took some pictures of the action as well. Um, but yeah, actually, here I'll put a link for you guys if you want to check it out. So this is the blog. I haven't maintained it much at all, and nobody visits it, I don't think, but except for here and there. But I called it the Floating Piano Blog because the name of my business is Floating Piano Factory in New York, which is still running in New York. I'll share my screen for those of you that aren't opening up the site, and we'll probably find that article that I wrote. So this one, this was my visit to Hong Kong. So there were actually, I don't know, I'm sure there's some of you that haven't heard this part of the story. When I was doing piano tuning in New York City, I was kind of training people and bringing on apprentices, right? So that people could learn the business and how to do things. As you could tell, I've always been trying to helping people learn things. And so, uh, we kind of became known as a place that you could learn stuff about piano tuning. Well, apparently we became known throughout the world, and these two young ladies from Hong Kong had contacted me online and said, "Hey, we'd like to be apprentices with you in New York City." And I said, "I'm sorry, like I can't pay for you to, your work visas and all this stuff." But we started training remotely, and I would kind of help them learn. I would help them learn things online. And this is like a precursor actually to piano technicians master classes, piano tech radio, all this stuff. I was doing online training with them, showing them how to tune and regulate and do various things. Um, and let's see here, where's this? This is a really cool piano that I discovered in Lima, Peru. This is actually an Erard action, and it unfortunately I don't think it was made by Erard himself because it was after he died, but it was that piano brand. Um, and it's really cool. It's got the catchers on the other side of the hammer, and it's made of metal, and it's got these little kind of I don't know what you call them. It's like a row of lines that are carved into the metal, and that catches the hammer, provides the friction to catch the hammer. So there's a little hole through the hammer shank that catcher or that back check goes through to catch the hammer on its way back down. Um, and this was, yeah, the Erard piano brand, and it just ended up in a bookstore in Lima. And this bookstore is about 3 blocks from the presidential palace. I just happened to wander in there and meet the owner of the store. It was given as a gift to her father or great grandfather from the ambassador of Chile to Peru. And so they didn't know what to do with it, really. It was just sitting there. So I did a little bit of caretaking of it, took it apart, investigated, explored it. That was really fun. And let's see here. What else?
They gifted the piano or just the action?
The piano. I'll show you the piano. Here's the piano. Here's another
Oh,
one.
I see.
Another image of it. So you see it sitting in a bookstore. So I
Yeah.
went over to the bookstore. We scheduled a date. I went over to the bookstore one day and I just spent a few hours kind of taking it apart and working on it and exploring it for a little bit. It's straight strung, so that was unique. And I'll show you some more pictures in a minute. I'm actually trying to find out the post where I work with Jonathan because that's going to be here somewhere. In Colombia, I spent time with a violinist and an opera singer that were friends with that ambassador from Peru that I knew. So there's some cool times there. And let's see here. I went to various cultural centers throughout Peru. There's these things called, what are they called? It's like a United States Peruvian consulate kind of thing, like a cultural consulates that they have in these various cities. So I would go visit them, and they usually had a piano, and I would work on it and get to know the people that worked there. Um, this is from a day I actually went. This is really fun. Talk about people who can work on pianos in Peru. At least at the time I was there, it was very difficult to find someone who um, knew much of what they were doing. They had to have trained in Europe or and come back or something like that. So this is a bunch of students at the local university who played piano, and I went in and volunteered to just like show them the basics, take the piano apart, show them, the basics of tuning, how the different parts work and stuff like that. Um, that that that's a guy. I found some interesting brands you don't typically see in the United States. The Geyer piano. Um, it's interesting to see the different brands and the different locations. Let's see, like this. Gosh, there's a lot of posts here. I didn't realize. I'm trying to find this one where I visited with Jonathan. It's got to be here soon. Here it is. Urubamba, 1872
that's him.
Chickering piano. And there's me helping him replace the strings. Can you guys hear me? I know I'm using a little bandwidth to load the pages. Yeah? Okay, cool. I'll open this one up because I think I'll have some pictures of that Brown action once the page loads. It's going to take a minute. In the meantime, I'll just scroll through and show you some of the other stuff. Let's see here. In Peru, I got to meet some very interesting people. They had a cultural festival, but there's some like international personalities that came to it where it was a lot easier to access them actually in these kind of smaller towns in Peru. So met some interesting folks there. And Hernando Torres Fernandez, that was the ambassador, the cultural ambassador. And that's his piano. Actually, I worked on his piano a little bit. All right, let's go over here to the Urubamba post. Oh, wait. 2 weeks later, just before I had to rush off during my visa, I received an unexpected email. A man named Jonathan reached out to me from West Virginia, writing to say that he had recently discovered our blog, and not only that he was heading to Peru to rebuild a piano in a Baptist seminary in a town called Urubamba, he wanted to see if I'd like to join him. Although Urubamba is far from Arequipa, I was definitely interested in making the journey, but I was already rushing out of town to get that visa renewed. Fortunately, Jonathan wasn't coming down for 2 weeks, so I figured I could make that work. No problem. Plenty of times. 2 weeks later, hadn't responded to Jonathan. Oh, I had to kind of like pull myself together to make that trip to him. Oh yeah, this is cool. Here, let me show you a video. So I'm in this town in Peru, Urubamba. It's a small town. It's this mission there that I just got this email from this guy. I never met him. I don't even know what he looks like, and I'm trying to find this mission to get to this piano. So let me turn the sound on, and you can see I'm walking down this alleyway. Trying to talk to people in broken Spanish to find this piano, and I can't tell if I'm in the middle of nowhere or I'm actually on my way to finding this instrument. And I'll show you what that alleyway looked like because I took a little video of it. Let's see here, put this big. I don't know if we're getting sound.
It's raining, huh?
It's raining, and these are just chickens. Can we get the sound up on this? I don't know where it is. It's fine. I think I'm gonna turn around and show you that
Is that
alley there.
in the
Oh
background?
no, what's that?
Is there music in the background?
There was a little bit of sound. Here it is. Here's the dirt road that I had to walk, the muddy road I had to walk down. Somebody said, "Hey, it's down there." I'm like, "Okay." And this door was the door I had to go through to the mission. This is where the mission is. Beautiful. And his uncle lived up on that mountain that you see there in the background. Um, but yeah, anyways, that was cool. All right, let's see if okay, so there's me. This is Jonathan and his brother. That's not me. That's Jonathan's brother doing the string installation. And this is the room that the piano was stored in. This is the view from his uncle. He was staying with his uncle who ran the mission. This is the view from the mountainside where his uncle lives. Absolutely gorgeous. Here's the action of the piano. Let's see if we can get this bigger. So he was doing some hammer hanging, it looks like, as well. Wonder how much I can get. You know what? I think I do have some more pictures somewhere
How
of
did
the
he
way the
cut
action.
excess shanks on those hammers?
What's that?
What did he use to cut the excess shanks on the hammers?
I have no idea. I really don't know at that point. But this thing did have so it's a grand piano, but you can see these springs, right? These look more like the springs that you would see on an upright piano, right?
No.
So this was part of the action mechanism. And the interesting thing about unfortunately I don't have a picture of it, but the jack would sit right on top of the key. Like it had its own little pivot point that was on the key. So you just had like a key and then the jack.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I forget exactly how it functioned and worked, but it was kind of funny to see. It looked like somebody took an action apart and didn't remember how to put it back together.
Ethan, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I coincidentally with his trip, I had gotten a call from a guy in Greenwood, South Carolina, who had a Chickering with the brown action in it. It's the first one I'd ever seen. So I went up there. I have a ton of pictures, by the way. And that piano had a real story behind it. But to me, it was like the weirdest thing. You really, to regulate something like that, take a little bit of work just trying to figure it out. And I just found this guy's contact information yesterday. I'm not trying to get in touch. I don't know what happened to that piano. He wanted to donate it. He wasn't sure what would come of it. But the Brown action was invented by this guy, Edwin Brown, who was in Boston. And he ended up working at the Chickering factory. That's how it found its way into those Chickerings. And then the more modern action based on a rod, the double repetition came after that. But they were put into quite a few Chickerings. And from what I read, if one of those is regulated properly, it's a great instrument. But the knowledge, has probably gotten lost by now.
Yeah.
It is a weird arrangement, though. If you look straight in, you'll even get that impression. So I'd be willing, if you don't have pictures, I'll send them off to you. I've got a ton of them.
Cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Send him along. Maybe we'll take a look. I should see if Jonathan could join. I'm sure
Yeah.
he has some info
Well,
on that whole thing.
I think he relocated. I'm not really sure, but I can track him down because I periodically I'll send an email to him.
Cool.
Yeah, it was a great project though for you guys.
Yeah, yeah, very, very cool. Yeah, I mean, I only got to help out one day, but it was a lot for him to take on, I could tell. Uh, hey, we're almost done here. We got a minute or two. You know what? I just go back and show you. I opened up a couple other of those pages because I thought it might be interesting. So let's see if I can. I think I opened up the Erard piano, and maybe we can get a little bit more detail on that. Oh, this is actually just a post about, I just use it as a cover image about the Erard piano. Let me see here. Well, this one, this is when I visited Hong Kong in the parks, they actually have monkeys just running around. That was kind of fun. This is Macho. This is one of the young women who I was teaching about piano tech stuff over online, and I actually then went to Hong Kong, took a trip there to visit her and her friend Nu Wei, who was the other one that was helping me. And she had a friend who had a piano she had just purchased, but it had some technical issues with it. So we went to this store where she was sold the piano and kind of talked to the people who sold it to her and tried to figure out a resolution to the issue. And let me see here. What's this one? This is let me go back and see if I got more on that Erard because this is Anders Piano. I forgot the name. This is a good reminder. This is one of the major piano dealers in Lima. Probably not the same guy you were talking about because his family was in the business for like 3 different generations. But I talked to him. That was very cool. Here it is, Erard Elvire Piano. Elvire was the name of the bookstore. And part 2 is actually where I went and looked at it. So I'll share that link in case we don't get to chat through it. But there's probably at least a couple of pictures so you can get a little bit better idea of what's going on with that particular piano. Where's the chat? So that's the link to the blog post. And yeah, you can take a look. I think there might be a few images. This is how they stored it, just kind of sitting there, a place to put a chessboard on top of. This is a wider view of the piano and its placement. And I did give it a tuning and try to get it working better. There's that other side view of the action. And there's the another view of the action, which is relatively normal, although there's some weird adjustment there in the back in lieu of capstans. I think it was directly connected over here. That was a little bit confusing. All right, I do have more pictures of that stuff, but clearly I didn't put it online. So interesting stuff, though. Maybe I'll share about that in the future if I can dig up some of that stuff. All right. Well, we've come to the end of another exciting hour of Piano Technicians Radio, Piano Tech Radio Hour this week. So thank you guys for joining us. Appreciate it. And if you aren't familiar with us and you want to find out more, and you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, go check out pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. We were sort of just finished the majority of content for our September convention, although some other included future content is coming up in the coming months, which we'll give to the people who already subscribed to that convention content. And we'll be continuing to come back to you with Radio Hour each week. Dean, let's stay in touch and we can work together some more. I appreciate you joining us for the first time today.
Well, thank you, Ethan. I'm glad I joined. Yeah.
Good. All right, cool. See you all later. Thanks.
Bye-bye.